container of tiny little wood scraps and you're not sure what to do with them? Well, stay tuned. Hi, my name is Leslie and welcome to Happy Tuesday, where we do crafts and DIY and home decor and more. Today I have for you 4 stinking cute DIYs that you can do using those tiny little scraps and a few other Dollar Tree items. Now, don't forget to stick around until the very end and I'll have a hint on one of next week's projects. So, let's get started. And here's a quick sneak peek at all 4 of these projects. I am in love with these projects today, and that will bring us to project number 1. This one is so adorable, and I am just going to use this little piece from Dollar Tree. They bring them out in all kinds of seasons, and I'm going to take those beads off and I am going to push the back out. And the way this is formed, when you push the back out, it's kind of like a little hinge, and then you can push the pieces all back. So now I'm just going to take my container of all my scraps and see which ones I think will make cute little houses. And once I've got those all picked, then I am going to cut them down to size and sand them all up and make sure that they are ready to go using my handy dandy miter box and saw. And I'll have one link down below if you don't have one, because this is just a really great tool to keep stashed away with all your craft supplies. Once we've got those all tucked down to size, I am going to glue some of the pieces together because I either wanted them a little bit thicker or I needed them popped together. And then we're going to grab our Waverly plaster chalk paint and give that frame a good coat. I think I might have even given it 2. It did have kind of a wood grainy but slippery feel on the outside, so you might want to give it a rough up with your sander before you get started. And now I am picking the little tiny pieces to use for my roof tops, and I am going to cut them all using my miter shears, another very important tool I will have linked below in case you don't have one. And once we've gotten all those pieces picked and cut down to size, I sanded them, but I also sanded them down into a little bit of a peak so that the 2 edges of the rooftop will fit together snugly. And once I've got that all done, then I'm going to take my antique wax. Now, normally I use the antique wax from Waverly, but I've been using Michael's Craft Smart antique wax. And then I'm going to pick all my colors and give all my little houses paint colors. And I kind of like the muted tones for that, so I believe I either used moss or celery for the green, and the blue I mixed with a gray to kind of soften down the tone. And then I've got the gray, which is silver lining, and the sandstone and the plaster. And I am just using my paint marker and a little bit of paint to make my windows, and then I put my roof on, and I'm just gonna kind of weather that a little bit with some gray. And then here I'm giving my door a little bit of a decor piece, window and a little handle. And then again, I'm going to use my paint marker and draw on the windows, and then I'll use my other paint marker in white and go around the edges. In addition to the paint marker, I'm also using white chalk paint by Waverly with a little fine detail brush to go around the outside of the windows and to create the little window effect on there. And once I've got those all drawn on, then I will do the same to the little window I added onto my door frame. And then we will take another little scrap piece and make some little window coverings, window sashes. What are they called? If you can remember, leave me a comment down below. So we're just going to awnings, maybe? Are they awnings? Anyway, we're going to add those on and glue all our pieces on. Now for all the wood pieces, I am using that wood glue by Super Glue that you can buy at Dollar Tree. I love that stuff. It sticks so well. And now I'm taking my little moss greenhouse and adding some windows onto it. And we're going to do shutters on this one. So I'm cutting down some more tiny little pieces. And I believe these are leftover pieces of some craft sticks that I used last week on one of my DIYs. So keep those scrap little pieces. You never know when they're going to come in handy. And I used them a lot for this video for all these DIYs this week. And I'm really loving the cottage decor feel. One of the houses that I did last week for the little kind of a Santa's street view Christmas houses, I used a lot of little tiny scraps. So I am going to take my white paint marker and I'm going to draw on the outlines for my windows and some little window details. And then I've just got a little glob of that wood glue up there that I'm using with my tweezers to get those shutters on, and we'll glue the rooftop on that one. And then we're going to take the plaster colored one and we are going to draw on some windows on this. Now keep in mind, at least in mine, some of these houses are front houses and some of these houses are back houses. And so they won't all need doors, but they do all need windows. And there's another awning. Did we decide it was an awning? And some another little shutters, and I stained them all with that antique wax. It's super easy, but it also dries really quickly, and then you can kind of double up on the coats if you want it to be lighter or darker, depending on what look you're going for. So I'm going to just use my tweezers and the glue and my little miter shears and get those all glued down. And then here's the door that I've fashioned for this one, and we put a little planter box on it underneath the top window. And now we're just gonna glue on our rooftops for this last house, and then we're going to start organizing them. Well, as I started organizing them, I kind of wanted them sitting next to each other, so I had to trim down all my roof lines on my rooftops that I had put up there. But you can see how well that super glue, wood glue by super glue, held. And then I just grabbed a piece of bark from outside and a dead little, I think it's from my sage bush twig, and glued that on as a tree. And then we're going to take some more plaster colored paint and just add on a little kind of dry brushing to give it more of a stone, I guess, look appeal. And then I used 4 of the tumbling tower blocks to create a stand so that this could stand alone instead of having to be hung up. And this project is complete. Isn't it just so stinking cute? And it looks like one of those pieces that I've seen on Etsy for 40 bucks or more. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell, and that will bring us to project number 2. I found this old teacup and saucer at a thrift store. I believe I paid $1 for it, and I just thought it would make the perfect little tiny cottage. So the first thing I did was to take some foam board, and you can buy this at Dollar Tree, and just had a quick scrap, and I traced around the cup and then cut it until it was small enough to fit inside to give me room to make my little cottage. And then I grabbed a piece of cardstock and I am cutting it out to go with a little piece inside that foam board. Wow. And I am using that as kind of my little porch area. So I took the cardstock and I'm just cutting around it until it fits nice and snug inside that mug. And then I trimmed out the bottom edge so that it fits against the mug. And then I folded it over so that it made a little porch. And I glued that into the foam board. And then I grabbed a piece of this stick that I had. I believe those were paint stir sticks from Home Depot, and I trimmed it off to make my little porch floor. And this door and this window I made out of a piece of mat board, and I cut it out on my Cricut. I tried to cut it out several times using my utility knife, and I just couldn't get the fine enough detail. And then I traced those on my foam board, and then cut inside so that they had a place to sit. And this way you can actually peer through the window and the door. And then I am painting this moss colored green, and I added on some hardware to my door, little hinges and a handle. And then I took this scrap piece of lace and a piece of thread and kind of gathered it along to make a little curtain. And I'm actually going to make two, one for the door and one for the window. And I used my hot glue to glue that together, and then to glue it onto my foam board. And that way you can see that little curtain through the holes in the window. And then we'll go ahead and glue the window on. Now I am just using a regular craft glue in my little detail bottle that I bought from Temu to go ahead and put that on. And then the curtain for the window inside the window, I just made it a little bit smaller by trimming off the edge part of the trim. And then we'll go ahead and glue that in and glue the window on. And isn't that cute? Well, my window would be sorely lacking if I didn't make a tiny little windowsill. And so I'm just going to cut a scrap piece of wood and glue that in there, and then we have a little windowsill. And now I'm going to take some scrap little greenery and glue it together. And then we're going to grab a bead and cut it in half and glue that greenery inside the half bead. And then we will glue that on the windowsill. And then we have a little plant in our windowsill. And now we're going to put on our wood porch. And I found this tiny little wood piece. You could just use cardstock or whatnot. And I wrote Rose Cottage on mine. And now I am going to make a little bench to fit outside my window with some little scraps. So we'll make two little scrap legs, and then we have one little scrap seat. And then we'll take a scrap piece of, I don't remember whether it was a toothpick or a little skewer stick, but we're just going to take a little tiny scrap of that and put it inside the two legs to give it a little bit more stability, but also to look more like a stool or a little bench, I guess. And then we're going to paint the whole thing in that Waverly chalk paint in plaster. And once that is all dry, we are going to glue in. Now I'm using my Gorilla Glue, and I'm gluing my foam board and my little my cardstock inside the teacup. And then I am using that same Gorilla Glue to glue the teacup onto the saucer. And then I took some more scrap pieces and made them into little steps, and I covered them in antique wax. And I also used antique wax on that cardstock so that it matches the wood floor of the porch. And then we weathered it a little bit with some of that plaster colored paint and glued those together. And I thought it needed a little bit more detail around the edges of that foam board because you can kind of see the edge, and I didn't like that. So I grabbed some of these tiny little pearls that came in a package with, I think, 4 or 5 different sizes of pearls from Dollar Tree, and I am gluing those on. And then we'll put our little steps on and our little bench in, and then we are going to grab a couple of these little faux plants. Now I bought these from Temu, but if you don't have any, you could easily make some. just grab a little bit of greenery and a bigger bead, or you can use some clay and make some pots of your own. And then we added in a little bit of this floral moss, and I'm using hot glue to stick that down to make it look like kind of a grassy area. And then I added on one of my tiny little birds from Michael's, kind of peering there on the handle cup. And isn't this so stinking cute? I love this so much. I love the details of it, and I just thought it was a cool way to use an old teacup. And that will bring us to project number 3. This is probably my favorite. Now, I am in love with miniatures, and so I found this box at Dollar Tree. They have them in 3 sizes, and this is the biggest size in their $1.25 craft wood section. And then I also had this 6-pack of these little planks, and so I'm using planks to make dividers and also to make a roof line. And so I measured those off and used my miter box to get that cut. And we are going to make a centerpiece. So you can make these pieces however big or small you want them, depending on how many dividers you wanted. And then I took my roof pieces and some scrap craft sticks and cut down to make shingles. And I painted everything in the plaster color except the outside of the roof edges. And I stained that with that antique wax, as well as staining all those little tiles for the shingles. And then I gave them a quick little brush of some silver lining, I believe was the gray I used, and then put a little bit of plaster on there to give it that weathered look, and glued those down onto my roof. And then we will start assembly. So I'm going to assemble my little pieces that I cut, and I just glued those in with that wood glue and made shelves. And then we're going to go ahead and glue our roof together and get that glued on. Now these little pots I have from the Dollar Tree. It was in their spring section, and I cut those down because they were a little bit too tall. And I'm just adding in a little bit of these florals, and I want to say this might have come from maybe Walmart, these florals, but you can use any florals you have. And I just glued those inside the little pots. And that little ladder I made with a skewer stick and cut that into pieces. So we'll have a little ladder on the front. And I am gluing all my pieces into my little, we'll call it a shadow box. But if you wanted to, keep the same box and just use it for multiple seasons, you wouldn't necessarily want to glue all your things in there. Just something to keep in mind. And then I just took a scrap piece of paper and I made a little covering for the back side. And then this is a piece of the flour sack towel from Dollar Tree, and I am using my liquid stitch and my little mini press to make some edges and give it a nice finished look. And then this is a piece of microfiber towel that I also got from the Dollar Tree. And at first I tried to use the liquid stitch, but it kind of was a little melty on this microfiber towel. So I just used my hot glue gun, and then I've got this piece of fabric that I had from a spring piece I did, and I thought it looked kind of cottagey, so I'm making another little sheet out of it and adding those same edges with the liquid stitch and folding that up. And then we're going to use a little piece of this muslin, and we are going to make a tiny little pillow with our liquid stitch and a little bit of foam, pillow fiber, and we will glue all that together. Then I had a couple of scrap wood pieces that I thought would make the cutest little candlesticks, and so I am painting those in that celery color and gluing top and bottom together. And isn't that an adorable candlestick? Well, to make some candles, I'm going to use some of this model-like clay that one of you sweet viewers had told me about. and I am just making little candles, and then the wicks are some paper wrapped wire. See how cute it's starting to look? I had these little scrap keys, so I'm going to add those in there, and then I'm going to take some more of that scrap foam board and cut out little pieces to make books. And I have this vintage scrap paper, and we're going to make some little book covers and add those into our little shadow box. Isn't that book adorable? So I think I made 5 of those. And then on Temu, I bought these little miniature wine glasses. So I gave one a wine colored paint swatch in there. And now we're going to finish gluing these keys in and glue our books in. And then we'll glue in that little wine glass on top of the books. And once we've got that done, then we will get ready to do our last little piece that will go in the top. And that's going to be some little baskets. So I have these scarecrow hats from the Dollar Tree from last year. And I took the bottom off, and then I took my utility knife and cut the hat piece in 2. Now it's filled with foam, so it made the perfect little basket. And then I'm going to take that bottom that we took off and glue it onto the bottom of one of the little pieces, and we're going to have 2 baskets, a bigger one and a smaller one. And we're going to use this thicker paper wrapped wire, and I'll have that link down below. I've used it quite a bit in several different projects, and I bought it on Amazon. I love it. So we are just going to make some rings around this little half a hat piece there, and then make it look like a basket. So I think I used 3 pieces in this one and just glued it down with some hot glue. In case you're wondering, I use Gorilla Hot Glue. I find that it sticks the best. And once we have that 3rd piece on, then the 4th piece will kind of be the part of the basket where we can put something in. And so I'm just going to form it around and then glue the ends together, and then we'll glue that on top of the last layer that we had. Since we don't have a place to glue around the outside, we're going to glue it to the top. And once we've got that glued in, then I'm going to cut one more piece and make that the little handle. And because it's got wire in it, it will kind of stick into that foam. And so we're going to push it down in the foam. And I wanted something in my basket, and I really didn't have time to put together a little sewing kit, which is really what I wanted to put in there. But I just took some foam, some pillow fiber, and added that in there on the top, and made 2 baskets just like that. And then we're going to glue those into the top of our little shadow box house. And this project will be complete. Again, this I think is so adorable, and I love the way it sits on my shelf with my little old children's books, and it is just stinking cute. And that will bring us to our final project today. And I thought after so much detail, we needed something just a little bit simpler. So we are going to make this cute little sailboat, and you can buy the whole kit from Dollar Tree for $1.25, and it comes with all the pieces necessary. And I decided I wanted to do something different with the sails. But first we are going to, I'm going to show you kind of how it assembles here. And then I've got that little scrap piece. It actually came in the summer with the beachy stuff. It's a boat steering wheel. Yes, is that it? I think so. And we're going to start by giving the pieces a gray paint color, and then we are going to go back and weather them. For the base, I decided to go opposite, and we're going to start with the plaster color, and I am just dry brushing this on there. so that it gives it that weathered appearance. And then we'll go back over it with that silver lining chalk paint. Again, another kind of dry brushing right over top, and that gives it that weathered appearance. So you're not being real fussy with this. You're just, you know, covering it up so that there's still some wood left, and you see a little bit of plaster. And then we're going to go back over the pieces that we've already painted with some of that plaster colored paint, just to give it, again, that weathered appearance. Now that flour sack towel is going to get a little bit more use here, and I am going to take those forms that they had for the sails. It feels kind of like that infusible stuff that, you know, you put inside to kind of stiffen up fabric when you're making like collars and stuff. But we are going to use those as the forms, and I'm going to cut a little bit around it so that, again, I can give it a nice clean edge with that liquid stitch and my mini press. And first I'm going to kind of iron it all down with the mini press so that we know exactly where we're gluing, since it's such a tiny little seam. And then we'll go in with the liquid stitch and just stick it in that kind of little pocket there, and then press it down with the mini press. Now I made this first piece the wrong direction when I glued it together, so I had to make another big sail, but you'll see that in a minute where I have two sails. And so I'm just going to glue the sides down to that, and I'm just gluing them on top of my little Teflon sheet that I will use to press here in a minute, and get that all nice and secure. Now, because this little tea towel is not very stable, I am using some fabric stiffener and a piece of parchment paper, and I'm just going to spray that on and then iron it on with my little mini press until you get it the stiffness that you want it. And then I did go back in and stick it inside that Teflon sheet and iron it one more time. Now we're going to start assembly, and this glue that comes in this kit is perfect. So I just used that and glued down the back piece, and then we will glue down the piece that holds our dowel for the sails, and we'll put our dowel in there, and then we are going to add our little pieces to the edge. So one piece fits in that bottom, and then the other piece fits inside the dowel. And then it came with the little string, and we are going to, in a hole at the top of the dowel, so we're going to thread that through, and then we're going to tie it in a knot on either side of those little tiny wooden dowel pieces, so that we've got something for our sails to stick to. Say that 3 times fast. And once we've got those all good and secure and knotted down and tight the way you want them, then I'll trim off what's left, and we are going to start gluing our sails on. And so I just put a bead of glue on that little twine there, and across the bottom a little bit of that dowel piece on both sides. And then we're going to give our steering wheel a little color of plaster and some gray, and I cut a little scrap of gray cardstock for a little flag up at the top. And then I am going to use my little stamp letters to say adventure awaits, and we're going to stick that right on the front of our sailboat, and then glue on our little steering wheel, and this project is complete. And I just thought, for something so simple, it turned out so sweet and just really does have that whole cottagey appeal to it, and I just love it. So here's another look of all of today's projects. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite, or which one you would like to try to recreate. I just love my miniatures, and I love cottage decor, and this was the perfect way to use up some of those scraps. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really did enjoy our time together. Now, since you stuck around till the very end, here's your hint on next week's project. You're going to need a small wood round anything that you cut from outdoors will do. You will need one of these little palettes from the Dollar Tree. And then some things for embellishments. I have little flowers, little picks, maybe a couple little wood items or two. But until then, make it a great day and happy Tuesday!